Part 1. The empty side of the bed. The first thing she noticed was the silence, not the absence of noise. No, the house still made its usual nighttime sounds. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of old wood contracting in the dark, the occasional rustle of wind brushing against the windows. But his absence made those sounds feel louder. Like everything else had taken a deep breath in his place. Lan lay on her side of the bed, staring at the outline of where he used to sleep. The sheets were still smoothed, untouched. His pillow remained fluffed, like he might return at any moment, but he wouldn't. They hadn't spoken in 3 days. Not since the argument, not since that moment in the kitchen when she said, "I don't think I can do this anymore," and he didn't stop her. There were no slammed doors, no raised voices, just the quiet. She closed her eyes, remembering the way he used to breathe in his sleep, soft, rhythmic. Sometimes she'd synchronize her breaths with his, letting his steadiness pull her back from insomnia. But now, even the air felt lonely. In the morning, she would have to explain to the children why Daddy didn't come home. Or maybe she wouldn't. Maybe they already knew. Children have a way of sensing things, especially the things their parents try hardest to hide. Lan reached over, fingers brushing the empty pillow. "It felt cold," she whispered to the dark. "When did we stop trying?" No answer came, only the refrigerator humming. Indifferent outside, dawn crept in slowly, painting the room in pale blue. Lan turned to face the window. For now, she would not cry. There would be time for that later. Part 2. What the neighbors don't see on the outside. Nothing had changed. Lan still watered the garden at 6:30 every morning, still waved politely to the elderly couple next door, still packed lunch for the children in carefully labeled containers. From across the street, she looked like a woman in neutrality, composed, dependable. But inside, the house was quieter than ever, and not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that echoes, that grows like mold in the corners, creeping into her bones. Minh hadn't returned. He hadn't called. No messages, not even a forwarded email. Just an empty chair at dinner, and the hollow ring of silence when the kids asked, "Is Ba working late again?" She lied with practiced ease. "Yes, sweetie, he's got a big project." It was strange how quickly the human heart adapts. The first night without him, she barely slept. The second, she kept the TV on low for comfort. By the third, she didn't even notice he wasn't beside her until the alarm rang. At school drop-off, another mother approached her. "Lean, always too observant. You look tired," Lean said, concern softening her tone. Lan forced a smile. "Late nights, the kids have been restless." Lean didn't push, but her eyes lingered. Lan could feel the questions she didn't ask that night. After the children had gone to bed, Lan stood in the kitchen with a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She stared at the space where Minh usually left his keys. The small things what undid her. Not the absence itself, but the subtle ghosts of him. His scent on the bathroom towel, his favorite mug, untouched, his shoes still neatly by the door. And suddenly, it wasn't anger that rose in her. It was grief, because somewhere, in the middle of bills and parent-teacher meetings, they had vanished, not with a bang, but with quiet forgettings. She whispered into the steam, "Were we ever really happy, or just too tired to notice we weren't?" The tea remained cold. Part 3. The forgotten anniversary. The date stared at her from the calendar circled in red, like it mattered. June 2nd, their anniversary. Lan had almost forgotten. The reminder came not from Minh, not from the children, but from a memory. A blurry image of the two of them in Hainan, lanterns swaying above their heads, laughter caught in the humid summer air. Back then, love was simple. Or at least, it felt that way. A shared plate of kalyu sound between their toes, his hand on the small of her back. They were younger, braver, less weighed down by life. She looked around the kitchen now. There were no flowers, no wine, no sign that the day meant anything. Part of her wanted to call him, to say, "Do you remember?" But she didn't, because she wasn't sure which would hurt more, his answer, or his silence. Instead, she spent the evening folding laundry, small socks, school uniforms, towels that smelled faintly of eucalyptus. Mundane things that grounded her. Lin, her youngest, wandered in and leaned against her. "MD, can I sleep in your bed tonight?" Lan looked down at her daughter's round face, her wide eyes. She nodded. They curled into the big bed together. Lin fell asleep quickly, her small hand still holding Lan's thumb. Lan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Some anniversaries pass like any other day. Some press into you like bruises. She whispered, "Happy anniversary, Min." No one answered. Outside. Rain tapped gently at the window. Part 4. The dinner table without Hemet. Was spaghetti night Min's favorite? She didn't plan it that way. It just happened. Out of habit. The way her hands still reached for the same spices, the way she stirred the sauce, the way he liked it. But he wasn't there. The kids didn't notice. Or maybe they did, but chose not to say anything. Lan placed the plates on the table, lit the small candle in the center, something she used to do when they were trying to feel like a family again. Len twirled noodles onto her spoon and asked, "When's Daddy coming back?" Lan blinked slowly. "Soon, sweetheart." It wasn't a lie. It was hope wrapped in a whisper. They ate quietly. The clinking of forks, the occasional slurp. Across the table, her son Anne kept stealing glances at the empty chair. After dinner, she gathered the plates and stood at the sink, staring out the window at the garden Min once planted. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. Part 5. The shirt in the laundry. She wasn't looking for it. It was tucked between school uniforms and dish towels. A pale blue shirt, Min's, the one he wore on the day they signed the mortgage. The one he always said brought him luck. Lan stared at it for a long time. She hadn't seen it in months. She lifted it gently, pressing the fabric to her face. It didn't smell like him anymore. Just detergent and distance. Somewhere in the quiet, Lynn called out in her sleep. Lan folded the shirt, slowly, and placed it back in the drawer she hadn't opened in weeks. There were some things she wasn't ready to let go of. Not yet. Part 6. Her mother's voice. Lynn didn't plan on calling her mother. It just happened. She had stood too long in front of the rice cooker that night, its steam clouding her glasses, her thoughts, and in that fog, she found herself dialing the number she had memorized years ago. Her thumb hesitated on the final digit, but then the call went through. "MDNK," her mother answered, voice lined with age and quiet suspicion. For a long breath, Lan said nothing. Then, "Konchamuan, Engjing, MDMT, cut." Her mother didn't ask questions, not yet. She never did, not directly. Instead, she filled the silence with cooking advice, neighborhood gossip, and a reminder to add ginger when Lan felt cold in her bones. But between the small talk, the old woman's voice softened. "Derne kon bun kang." Lan swallowed. "Bun," she said, the biggest lie, spoken in the smallest word. A long pause. Then her mother said, "Hung gmg, the long L's ma trisai, kane, kai gm kwa, la no hangi." Lan closed her eyes. Her mother always had a way of piercing through her defenses, not with force, but with ancient, weary wisdom. They said goodbye like people not sure when the next call would come, or if. After hanging up, Lan sat alone in the dark kitchen, listening to the hum of the appliances, the breath of the house. Her mother's voice still echoed inside her. "Don't let everything pass in silence. The things that grow too quiet are breaking." Lan ran her fingers along the dining table. One day, she would talk to Min, not fight, not accuse, just talk. But not tonight. Tonight, she would hold the silence a little longer. Part 7. The drawer. He locked it. Was a Tuesday afternoon when she found the drawer. Not that it had been hidden. It had always been there, in Min's old desk in the spare room. But it had been locked for as long as Lan could remember. She never asked why. Some boundaries, even in marriage, are quietly agreed upon. But today, while searching for an extra charger, she found the key, taped under the drawer, forgotten by time. Her hand hesitated, then turned the lock. Inside, a stack of envelopes, faded photographs, a watch she'd thought he lost, and a notebook, worn at the edges. She opened it slowly. There were pages and pages of Min's handwritings, some entries dated back years, scribbled reflections, regrets, questions he never asked aloud, and there, between lines, his loneliness, unfolded. "I don't know how to talk to her anymore. She looks at me like I'm already gone. She's still beautiful, but I think I'm disappearing in her silence." Lan's breath caught. She closed the notebook and sat with it, on her lap, her fingers tracing the ink. She wasn't the only one grieving. Part 8. The birthday. They both forgot. The day came and went without candles, no cake, no whispered wishes, no awkward songs sung off-key by the children. Just an ordinary Thursday, filled with emails, dishes, and the constant shuffle of routine. Lunch. Only remembered it was her birthday when Leanne sent a text that evening. "Happy birthday. I hope today brings you a little peace." She stared at the screen for a long time. The words felt foreign, like they belonged to another woman. Someone still worth celebrating. Min didn't call. Not that she expected him to, but still, a small, stubborn part of her had waited for it, had listened for a ping, a knock, a voice. Instead, the silence arrived like always, timely, loyal. UNDEMANDING. She sat by the kitchen window, where the moonlight spilled across the tiled floor like soft milk. A single cupcake sat in front of her. She had bought it that morning at the bakery, without knowing why. Chocolate, with a little swirl of cream. Lynn and Anne were asleep upstairs. The house, again, was still. She didn't light a candle. She didn't make a wish. She just took a small bite. Slow and sweet. The taste brought her back years ago. Minh had surprised her with a homemade cake. It had sunk in the middle, uneven and lopsided. But he'd been so proud. "We're not perfect," he'd said, "but I think we're still good." She closed her eyes. Were they? Outside, a dog barked in the distance. A train rolled by, unnoticed by most. Time moved on. Birthday or not, Lan whispered to no one, "I almost forgot today was mine." The wind brushed against the glass like a sigh. Part 9. The things left unsaid there were words that still lived inside her. Unspoken. Not big ones, not declarations or ultimatums. Just small truths. Like the way she missed the sound of Min's spoon clinking against his coffee mug in the morning, or how sometimes she still reached for his hand while crossing the street with the kids, only to find air. One evening, as she was sorting through Anne's homework, Lan found a crumpled piece of paper tucked behind his math book. It wasn't schoolwork. It was a drawing, a family of 4, Ba and Anne Lynn, but Ba was faded, drawn in pencil while the others were in bright crayon, almost erased. Like Anne wasn't sure if he still belonged there. She held the paper to her chest, her heart tightening. The children knew more than she gave them credit for. They always had. Later that night, Lan sat at the edge of the bed and stared at her phone. Min's name was still at the top of her favorites list, untouched, familiar. She opened a message thread, blank. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. "I saw Anne's drawing today. He still includes you." She typed it, then deleted it. Typed again. "We're both vanishing. I don't know how to stop it." Deleted. Finally, she wrote one word. Simple. Raw. Hi. She stared at it for minutes, then hit send. No response came that night, but it wasn't silence anymore. It was a space, waiting to be filled. Lan turned off the lamp and lay back, letting the dark hold her. For the first time in weeks, her sleep came gently. Part 10. The night he came back for a moment, it was almost midnight when she heard the door unlock. Lan froze in the hallway, the laundry basket still in her arms. For a second, she thought she imagined it until she heard the quiet shuffle of shoes being slipped off. Min. He looked older, thinner somehow. His eyes met hers for the briefest moment before drifting down, as if even eye contact had become too sharp. "I just came for a few things," he said softly. She nodded, stepping aside. He moved through the house like a guest, opening drawers with the hesitation of someone unsure of his place. He gathered some clothes, his laptop, and the book he always kept on his nightstand but never finished. They didn't speak, but when he reached the hallway again, bag slung over his shoulder, he paused. Lan could feel her heart beating in her fingertips. "How are the kids?" he asked, not meeting her eyes. "They miss you," she said, voice steady. "And drew you in pencil." He looked down, hands tightening slightly on the strap of his bag. "And you?" he asked, almost a whisper. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. In that quiet space, everything unsaid, pressed in between them, years of distance, choices not made, apologies buried too deep. "I don't know how to fix this," Min said. Lan stepped closer. "Neither do I, but I don't want to keep pretending it doesn't hurt." Their eyes met then, and for a breath, they were still Lan and Min, not the versions shaped by bitterness or silence, but the ones who once held hands under lantern-lit skies. He didn't stay, but he didn't slam the door either, and when he left, the silence he left behind felt less cruel, more like a question. Part 11. The things that stay. The house was still, not the haunting kind of stillness, but the kind that comes after a storm when everything holds its breath, waiting to see what survived. Min hadn't returned since that night, but his presence lingered in quiet ways. A forgotten razor by the sink, the coffee tin shifted slightly in the cabinet, a faint indentation on the edge of the bed, as if someone had once sat there, thinking too long. Lan found herself speaking aloud, more now. Not to anyone in particular, just to fill the space. Lynn had a fever last night, she murmured while brushing her daughter's hair, but it broke this morning. Or, the basil's growing again, you'd like that. She didn't know if it was madness or survival, this way of pretending he still listened. Some evenings, she would reread his notebook. Not to invade, but to remember. His handwriting became familiar again, each line pulling her back to the man beneath the distance. There were regrets etched in those pages, but also affection and longing. I wish I knew how to be the man she needed, one line read. But I didn't even know how to ask what she needed from me. Lan pressed the page against her chest and closed her eyes. Outside, rain began to fall softly, like it was afraid of interrupting. The children had adjusted in their own quiet ways. Anne grew quieter, more serious. Lynn asked fewer questions. They sensed everything, even the things she tried to protect them from. And yet, life continued. Dinner was still made. Homework was checked. Teeth were brushed. The world didn't pause for heartbreak. Lan stood at the window, watching the droplets race each other down the glass. Some things leave, but some choose to stay, even when it hurts. And sometimes, that's what love looks like. Part 12. The night they finally spoke, it wasn't planned. She opened the front door expecting silence, maybe a delivery package, but there he stood, hair slightly damp from the misting rain, shoulders hunched like a boy afraid of punishment. They stared at each other for a long second. "Hi," he said, voice barely more than breath. Lan stepped aside. "Come in, the kids are asleep." He nodded, slipping off his shoes like he used to, as if this were any other night, as if nothing had cracked between them. But everything had. They sat at the dining table, the same one that had watched years of birthdays and arguments and late-night study sessions. She made tea, not because he asked, but because her hands needed something to do. He didn't touch it. "I wasn't sure if I should come back," Minh said finally. She looked down at her cup. "I wasn't sure if I wanted you to A pause. The clock ticked loudly above them. "I read your notebook," she admitted. "The drawer. I didn't mean to, but I did." He looked away. "I figured you would. Part of me hoped you would." "I didn't know you felt that lost," Lan whispered. Min's eyes glistened. "I didn't know how to say it. I thought, if I just kept going, it would fix itself. That we would fix ourselves." Lan blinked hard. "We stopped asking each other how we were. We just managed the house, the kids, the schedule, like business partners," he said bitterly. "Not even that." The silence now wasn't empty, it was dense, full of memory, fear, and something softer trying to take root. "I don't know if we can fix it," Lan said. "Me neither," Min replied. They sat with that truth. No promises, no sweeping apologies, just the shared ache of two people who had forgotten how to meet in the middle, and were trying, for the first time in a long time, to begin again. Part 13. When the walls came down the next day, Min didn't leave. He slept on the couch not by request, but by instinct. Lan didn't offer the bed, and he didn't ask. Morning light crept in through the curtains, casting gentle shadows over the living room where he lay curled beneath an old blanket, one she had knit the year Lynn was born. Lan stood in the kitchen, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. She paused for a moment, then added sugar to his, just like she used to. She brought it to him silently. He accepted it with a nod. They didn't speak at first. The children would wake soon, and with them would come the noise and the distractions, and the carefully kept routines. But in that quiet hour, they had a fragile space to finally look at what lay between them. "I kept waiting for you to shout," Min said softly, fingers wrapped around the warm ceramic. "I kept waiting for you to leave," Lan replied. He smiled without humor. "Funny, I did, and I didn't feel any lighter." Lan sat down beside him, not too close, just near enough. "I thought maybe if I held everything together, you'd come back," she said. "But I was holding it so tightly, I stopped feeling anything. I left because I felt like a ghost in this house," he said. "Like I was, haunting the life we built." Tears welled in her eyes, not from his words, but from hearing the version of him she had missed for so long. "The one who felt, we were good once," she whispered. "Weren't we?" "We were," he nodded. "And then we got tired. Tired became silence. Silence became distance, and distance became normal." They looked at each other. This time, there were no defenses, no pretending, just 2 hearts cracked open, aching to be seen. Part 14. What we choose to keep the day passed, like breath quiet, unnoticed. But inside Lan, something had shifted. Min had taken the children to the park. It was his idea. He didn't ask for permission. He simply said, "I'd like to spend time with them today," and she had nodded. The house was still, empty, yet not lonely. Lan wandered into the bedroom and sat on the floor before her closet. Her hand reached for the old wooden box tucked in the back, the one with their wedding invitations, ultrasound photos, crumpled movie tickets, and the tiny hospital bracelet that once wrapped around Anne's wrist. Memories pressed into her palms like soft thorns. There were happy things, but they came with the ache of what followed. She found a photo from their honeymoon. They were young, sun-drenched, laughing without caution. She stared at it for a long time. Then, carefully, she closed the box. In the kitchen she began to cook, not out of duty, but something else. Something like ... care. She wasn't sure if it was for herself, or for him, maybe both. When they returned, the children carried stories and muddy shoes. Min helped them clean up, then hesitated in the doorway as the smell of simmering broth drifted toward him. She gestured toward the table. He sat. Dinner was soft-spoken but warm. The children filled the silence with laughter and arguments over who ate the last quail egg. Later, when the house was finally quiet again, Min lingered by the sink. "Thank you," he said. "Not for the meal, for something deeper." Lan leaned against the counter. "We can't go back," she said. "But maybe, we don't have to burn it all down." Min's eyes searched hers. "No," he said. "Maybe we can build something new, even if it's smaller." Lan nodded slowly. Not everything had to end in ashes. Some things, if tended gently, could begin again. Part 15. The quiet goodbye. The house was full of sun. Morning light streamed through the kitchen window, catching dust motes mid-air, like tiny stars suspended in time. Lan stood quietly, barefoot on the cool tiles, hands wrapped around a warm mug. The children were still asleep. Min had left early. He hadn't said goodbye out loud, but he'd left a note. She unfolded it slowly, the paper soft at the corners. Lan, I don't know how to say this except plainly. Thank you. For the years, for the love, even when it faded into silence. I think we both deserve something lighter now. You will always be the mother of my children, my first home. But I think we've stopped being each other's harbor. I hope, someday, we can forgive ourselves for that. Minlin read it twice, then folded it again, pressing it to her chest. Her tears didn't fall in torrents. Just a few, quiet, hot drops that slid down her cheek like rain on glass. No anger, no regrets, sharp enough to draw blood. Only a tired acceptance, and a thin thread of something gentler than grief. She looked around the kitchen. This home would remain hers. The rhythm of mornings, school lunches, late-night whispers. A different kind of family now. One that didn't fit the old shape but could still hold warmth. She opened the window. The wind was soft, carrying a new season. Upstairs, the children stirred. She wiped her cheeks and turned toward the stairs, her voice calm and clear as she called out, "Wake up, Sisi Khan, Hamne Mchenra, Tiem Sach Ne." New memories would come, slower, smaller, but real. And Lan finally was ready. She stood for a moment longer, listening to the sound of footsteps, laughter rising from the hallway. The silence had changed. It was no longer the sound of something broken. It was the space in which something new could begin, friendly ending. And now, in the quiet that follows, Lan walks slowly through her home, her footsteps light, her breath calm. She opens the curtains gently, letting in the soft golden light. Everything is quieter now, but the quiet no longer hurts. It holds space for healing, for memory, for peace. She stands at the window, the wind brushing her hair like a whisper from a kinder time. And as the morning hums around her, a feeling settles in. She has made it through. She is still here. You are. To. Sleep well, dream sweetly.